Hi everybody, welcome back to Curiosity Corner Live. My name is Andy. I wear bow ties because bow ties are cool. The Science Center is currently closed. We're excited to be part of the NFL draft this year, but we're still bringing you great science content. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. through May 14th, we will be exploring the science behind football. And we want to thank the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, for sharing their curriculum with us, making these videos possible. For more information, there's their website, profootballhof.com. So, today we are talking about collisions in football. Collisions happen all the time, not just in football. A collision is when two objects run into each other. There are a couple types of collisions. There's elastic collisions and inelastic collisions. So an elastic collision is when two objects bounce off each other. So here's an example of an elastic collision. We have a football, we have ponycorn. That is an elastic collision. Boing. If it bounces, it's an elastic collision. Ooh. An inelastic collision is when the two stick together. So for instance, if I caught this football and I grab onto it and it doesn't bounce off of me, that's an inelastic collision. If a train car bumps into another one and latches onto it, that is an inelastic collision. In both cases, energy moves around. One physical law is that energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed or transferred. It can only be moved around or changed. So when we explore collisions, we have to keep track of the energy. And we can figure out how much energy is moved around or dissipated during a collision. So in football, one example is when the player catches the ball. Another is when two players run into each other. So if the ball is caught, that's inelastic. If it just bounces off because the player didn't know it was coming, that's elastic. If two players run into each other, bounce off each other, that's elastic. If they grab onto each other, that is inelastic. So the energy in that collision, we can find out how much there is using, you guessed it, math. So let's say two players are running at each other and they run into each other, they grab onto each other and move as one unit. I did a video before about momentum. This is actually sort of a extension of that. So we'll use the same players and the same kind of ideas. Similar formula. Here is the formula for kinetic energy. 1/2 mass times velocity squared. So velocity is speed in a direction. Pretty simple formula. So if we take player number 1, say player number 1 is 93 kilograms and is running at 93 kilograms and 5.2 meters per second. So 93 kilograms and they're running at 5.2 meters per second. We can calculate how much energy. 93 times 5.2 times 5.2 and half of 93. So half of 93 times 5.2 times 5.2, and that comes out to 1,257 joules. What is a joule? A joule is a unit of energy. An easy way to think of a joule is it's the amount of energy you need to lift an apple a meter off the ground. It's not a lot of energy. So 1,257 joules, that is a lot of energy. And another player who is 136 kilograms and running at 2.2 meters per second would be only 329 joules. If you remember the momentum video, you know that kind of makes sense because this one has more energy, they had more momentum, and they sort of won the contest. This one, player 2, less momentum, less energy, lost the contest. So what if these two players collide? Well, we need to know how fast they're moving, the direction they're moving, and we can use another formula to figure out the final velocity, the final speed when they collide into each other, grab onto each other, and keep moving. Which direction are they going to keep moving? How fast? So here's the formula. Figure that out. There's a lot here, so I'm going to break it down. VF, that is final velocity. VF. So F stands for final, velocity stands V stands for velocity. You get it. So VF, final velocity. And then M1V1, that's mass of player 1 times velocity of player 1. M2V2, that is M mass of second player times velocity of second player. These 1s and 2s are supposed to be small, but that doesn't really come across in the banner that I set up here. The idea is it's not 1 times M, 1 times V, or 2 times M, 2 times V. It's the different kinds of M, the different kinds of V, the different kinds of masses. So, and then all that divided by the two masses together. So all these letters are one thing, but let's actually put some numbers in there. So it's interesting because if you look at this, that is the formula for momentum, mass times velocity. Here's the momentum formula again, mass times velocity. So we actually add their momentums together and divide by their total mass to find out the final velocity. So let's plug in those numbers. There's the mass of player 1, the mass of player 2, 93 kilograms for player 1, 5.2 meters per second for their speed, 136 for player 2 mass, 2.2 for their speed, and then there's the two masses together. So if we have player 1 and player 2 running at each other from opposite directions, we know that player 1 is going to win because it has more energy, but we don't know how fast they're going to be moving. Also, since they're moving in opposite directions, that's where that minus comes in. So right there, we have a minus. You saw here, this formula has a plus sign in it, but suddenly there's a minus. The reason why there's a minus is if they're moving in opposite directions, then we have to make one of the velocities negative. We need to make it go the opposite way. So this one has a positive speed. This one has a negative speed. That's just so the math can all work out the right way. So that is the formula. That's the math. It all shakes out to about 483.6 minus 299.2 divided by all that stuff divided by 229. And that comes out to 183.8 divided by 229, which is about 0.8 meters per second or 1.7 miles per hour. So these two collide and they keep moving in this direction, the direction of player 1 at walking speed. So boom, but then they keep moving in that direction. Maybe they fall over, maybe they keep moving, who knows? So that is the final velocity, but we still haven't figured out the energy. How much energy is dissipated? How much energy do they have left at the end of this? Well, we can use that kinetic energy formula. We know the mass, it's both their mass combined, and we know the velocity. We just figured that out. So we can plug in that velocity that we figured out into that formula. So there it is. 1/2 of their total mass times their velocity times their velocity. So that's 0.8 meters per second. And their combined mass, which comes out to this, 0.5, that's 1/2, times 229, that's their mass, times 0.64, that is 0.8 times 0.8, that's the velocity times the velocity. And their final energy is 73.28 joules. Not a lot of energy. So a lot of energy left the two players. Where did it go? Turned into sound. It may have transformed into sound, turns into vibration, goes into the ground. It changes into different forms. It moves around. But it's still there. It's just left the two players. It just went somewhere else. So that is the collisions that you can explore in football. My challenge to you is to keep exploring energy and collisions. See if you can calculate things like this using the formulas that I showed you. Doesn't have to be football. It could be football. You could figure out the energy lost. I don't want to say lost. The energy that leaves a football when a player catches it. You could explore different kinds of energy between different collisions. We didn't talk about elastic collisions. That's a whole nother ball game. In fact, baseball deals a lot with elastic collisions. I'm getting sidetracked. Explore collisions mathematically, and share anything you find, anything you discover on social media with our hashtag StayCuriousCLE. There it is, StayCuriousCLE. Show everybody how cool science is, how you can apply it to America's pastimes, some of these cool science concepts that sort of go unnoticed. And check back Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. for more Curiosity Corner Live through May 14th. And until next time, stay curious.